What's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of the Celtics Talk podcast here on the NBC Sports Boston podcast network. Got an interview with Grant Williams coming up later, but first, the real star of the show in my eyes, my buddy Nick Friedell from ESPN. He is the Golden State Warriors beat writer for now. But I want to get into it, Nick. You were there at MSG last night. How was it? How was it watching Steph break history, break a little Celtics tie there with Ray Allen? What was it like watching him get the 3-point record?
Awesome, buddy. Because when you're watching history, I think everybody involved knew what was coming, and it just felt like the intensity before a playoff game. I mean, I was standing down there taping stuff for some of the shows, and I turn around 2 hours before the game, and there's Spike sitting in his courtside seat, just taping it all. And we saw the videos of him and with Ray and Reggie and Steph. So there was an intensity in there that was palpable. And I think for the Warriors and for Steph, given how much he wanted to break this record and what it meant to him, not only was he so excited afterwards, but he was relieved. It was like this had been hanging over everybody for the last week or so. They wanted him to make it happen. And if he couldn't do it in San Francisco at Chase Center, the next best place would have been MSG. So there was a ton of exhaling going on in that Warriors locker room last night. And I thought one of the coolest stories is he got in there after the game, and he gave a speech to his teammates about how much they have meant to him through the years. So Steph's always been one of those guys around the league that everybody knows is real genuine. And this was just another example of exactly that.
I saw a photo of Spike Lee like laying on the parquet at MSG, getting like a post, and like, look, that's what filmmakers do. They make it look great. But yeah, I can't imagine. I've been waiting for that sort of playoff-like intensity to bubble up this season. That must have been cool to see. What's it been like watching the Warriors in general this year? I mean, obviously you get out there and they have injuries and they kind of go backwards to go forward. And what's it been like seeing them sort of rev back up to the level they're playing at now?
It's a reminder that when the Warriors are at their best, there is no better show in basketball. They're just fun. I mean, when you watch the Warriors, and it all starts with Steph, of course it does. Steph makes everybody enjoy watching basketball, maybe more for my money than anybody else. And I say that as somebody who grew up watching Michael Jordan and has seen the greatness of LeBron and Kobe and been lucky enough to cover some of their games through the years. But Steph just makes it all go. But the Warriors themselves, they are pretty damn good. And
that's an understatement.
And Chris, when you talk to all these guys before the season, look, they thought they would be pretty good, right? But I don't think anyone expected this. And so when you're seeing it come together this early and knowing that Klay Thompson is coming back at some point here in the next few weeks and that James Wiseman is coming back at some point in the next month or so, maybe, when you see it all starting to come together and you see Steph playing like the MVP, there's no telling just how good they can be. But the key to this team is Draymond. I mean, Draymond coming in shape and playing at the level he's playing at, especially on the defensive end, is the reason why the start has been what it is.
All right. So you mentioned it. They've had an emotional week. Any chance they like downshift in Boston after all the hoopla? Because like Celtics fans after, like, it's been a rough year for the Celtics. I'm not going to lie. We're going to get into that. But any chance the Warriors, like, Steph got his record, maybe they like rest the guy or something? I know they got 2 days off here. Any chance they're not something less than fully engaged?
It's interesting because I would be very surprised as we sit here and tape this right now if Steph, and probably Draymond too, because he's in that group, having played so many minutes through the years, all those playoff minutes, if Steph and Draymond played both sides of the back-to-back. So whether that means they sit in Boston or maybe sit in Toronto, we'll see and we'll find out. But I think there is a chance with the way that the week has come together and with how much emotion has been invested, that maybe they just might, even if they do play, they might run out of gas a little bit. But the difference with this team is we always know that offensively they're going to be awesome. although they struggled last year to find their rhythm, defensively, they've been unbelievable. And when you're getting that type of efficiency on both ends of the floor, but especially defensively, you and I have covered the league a long time. When you start seeing those defensive ratings pop up the way they have for Golden State so far, that's when you start to go, yeah, maybe this year can be pretty special for them.
Yeah, it's hard because Celtics fans are like, if the Celtics downshift at all, it's a loss. Like they got to be fully engaged. But the Warriors are the type of team where, one guy can go into second gear, the rest can just rev it up. And that's what makes them so special, man. It's fascinating to watch the ball movement. Every time I forget what good basketball looks like watching these Celtics, I just click over to your team and marvel at it. I do want to get your sort of, I don't want to say 3,000 mile away view. You're only like 3.5 hours away from me right now, but what's it like watching these Celtics from afar? And are you surprised by how much they've struggled?
Yeah. Yeah. When you see what Tatum has done and you see what Jaylen Brown can be still and what he's proven to be in time, any team with those two, when they're looking at the record that they have, I mean, Chris, I thought they would be at least in the playoff picture consistently. And maybe not in the top 4 or 5, but in that range right around after that. And it hasn't happened. And you're seeing it much closer than I am, obviously, on a daily basis. But I really am surprised. I'm not sure how you fix the issues that are popping up for this team. And you've been around that team so long, and they've played at such a high level for a pretty long stretch. To see them even decline a little bit with the young pieces that they have in place, I know the red flags have got to be going off around there, because when you watch, you see a team that just has never found seemingly the rhythm they need to figure it out.
Yeah, and it's so weird because, as early as 3 seasons ago, and they're with no Kyrie and no Gordon Hayward, there's Tatum and Brown knocking on the door of the NBA Finals, dunking on LeBron and almost getting through those Cavs. And then ever since then, whether it was, or I guess you could say before then with the Gordon injury, and then the whole Kyrie disaster playing out the next season, and it has been a weird stretch of years, and it's a little bit flabbergasting to understand why it hasn't come together now. And so, this is a flawed roster. One of the things that I don't know if people don't watch them on a night-to-night basis, it's, there's Jason and Jaylen there, and Jaylen hasn't been out there for half the games, but there's not a lot of shooting out there. This isn't the Warriors. They don't have guys that these guys can confidently kick to. There's still a feeling out process here. Is Marcus Smart the long-term point guard? Is Rob Williams ready for the workload that comes with being a starting center, and just figuring out how the complementary pieces work. All that being said, when you have 2 all-star wing pieces in an Eastern Conference that is better, but not overwhelming, it has been a little bit jarring that they're lingering in 10th and 500 team. And so I don't know, to sort of I don't know how Golden State will approach it. This is a stretch that is monumental for the Celtics in terms of where they go from here. They've got this sort of first signature win maybe of the entire year against the Milwaukee Bucks the other night. 3 days off, which is just weird on its own because they haven't really had this stretch. And now they're going to come back against the Warriors and try and show that they can keep it up. I guess I know you don't follow it too closely, but when you look at it from afar, the big storyline this week is, they got to break up Jaylen and Jason, or, overhaul this core, whatever you want to call it. Are you surprised that we're already at that point? Or I know we are a media of overreactions, but what do you think is maybe the most prudent path forward for this team?
I have to laugh because Andre Iguodala the other day, in advance to Steph breaking his record, was like, what's happening with the league these days? And Andre's been in the league,
right.
forever. He's like, everything has to have a narrative. Mm-hmm. And the Celtics are now in that moment where, hey, what do we do with this core? What happened? Speaking of narratives, as you were going through all that, I have always been a big fan of Brad Stevens. I think he is an awesome coach. The fact that he is now running things for Ainge, and he's not on the sidelines. I know you all have talked about it there on and on for the last few months. That from a distance, that's still just what stuns me. He's just such a damn good coach, and he's not the coach, but he's still around, which, hey. But as far as the Celtics go, I don't know if you have 2 wings that young who are that talented if you want to break it up, I mean, if you add that next piece, and I know we talked a little bit about it before we got rolling here. I don't know who it is. That's the other issue, and that's a bigger league issue, and that's bigger than just the Celtics. Who are the stars that are readily available? Who are the guys that you were like, if you threw Damian Lillard on this team, this Boston team, just for argument's sake, are you better? You have Damian Lillard, sure, but are you that much closer to where you want to go? No. I mean, the name that pops out to me, and he's not on the market that we know of, and there's a lot of different things that could go on in the next year or so. But what about like Karl Anthony Towns? Ooh. I would think he would fit better with what's in place, but what would you have to give up to get him if Minnesota even went down that lane and decided, hey, this isn't going to work? And it doesn't sound like they will. But other than that, Chris, this is a star-driven league. It always has been. The Celtics have two really good young players. What I would say to Celtics fans is, as good as they are, do you trust that they are two star caliber players that can potentially contend for a title down the line? I know what they did in the bubble a couple of years ago. It seemed like things were in place, but do you trust that those two at the top of your team can get you there? And that's what now Brad Stevens and company have to decide.
And so I think if you had the perfect complementary pieces, and I think they're trying to figure that out, like Marcus Smart might be a really good point guard for this group, but Marcus Smart is in this first year really where they've tossed him the keys. They've always had Isaiah, then Kyrie, and then Kemba. And now it's like, okay, let's see what Marcus Smart can do. And Marcus Smart is a flawed player. Like he sometimes gets outside of his ways. The other night against the Bucks, 11 assists, plays lockdown defense on Middleton. And I'm like, all right, if they could bottle that up, they've got something. My guy, Rob Williams. I don't know how much you see my network, Nick, but like I've sort of leaned into this Robert Williams thing. And I love the way he has blossomed, and I've been rewarded for my early faith in him. But look, there's a whole nother level for him to go to with defensive consistency. I do think he's the center of the future for this team, but he's still got to make strides. And so, if you could find another shooter at the 4 spot that, is perfect fit, and, then okay, then maybe you've got the right mix with the starter group, but you probably need some help coming off the bench. And so Brad Stevens, in this new role, which is still crazy to talk about, has to figure out what are those pieces. And so, naturally, I'm sitting here and the Celtics have a bunch of trade exceptions. I'm looking ahead, like same thing you're doing. What is that next piece? I don't love the Karl Anthony Towns, although there is a history of guys coming from Minnesota and taking the Celtics to a championship level. So let's not discount it. The name that comes up invariably up here is Bradley Beal. And I do think there's something to that based on his relationship with Jason Tatum. But, especially when you look at this deadline, I don't know how it's going to play out. And I look at Jeremy Grant in Detroit. Well, Detroit, what could you even offer them? Al Horford's partially guaranteed contract and a slew of future picks. I don't know if that gets it done. So they're in this weird spot where they're really trying to figure it out. And I say this to people all the time is it's not like sometimes in the past, the Celtics would be like, they need this one piece like this. They need to go get this or do this. Like I sit here and I go, I don't know. Like, I don't know what the pieces are. And I just know that they're going to try to make everything possible to make it work with the Jays before they even get to that bridge. And I think that's a bridge way down the road. So it has been funny this week to see people lose their minds and get all excited about that. You were around the Eastern Conference for a long time with Chicago and, now with the Nets and the Bucks there at the top. I'm curious, what are your thoughts on where, not even where Boston stands, but just the East in general? And, are Milwaukee and Brooklyn that much better than the Pack? Is there any chance a team below there? I mean, you got to be looking at your old boys thinking, wow, I didn't think they'd be as good as they are. Like, what's your take on the East as a whole?
First of all, the Bulls being what they are is stunning to me. On a daily basis, I'm on Twitter. And I said before the season, I thought they were a fringe playoff team. Of course, my man, Stacey King, who works at NBC Chicago, he took what our pal Timmy Bontemps said, because Timmy B crushed the Bulls. Timmy B was like, they're like the 11th or 12th seed. And he was telling Stacey started telling everybody that I said that. Let the record show that while I was not high on the Bulls, I did not have them in the depths of my boy Timmy B did. But that is a stunner that they have started off as well as they have, although now they're dealing with a whole slew of COVID protocol issues. over the next few weeks. But to your point, in the East, it's Milwaukee and Brooklyn and everybody else to me. The only other team that I think in a playoff series, if they're healthy, you do not want to see is Miami.
Yeah.
But I just wonder if they have enough to get past Durant and Harden in Brooklyn and Giannis and Middleton and Holiday and the defending champs in Milwaukee. So in the East, it's 2, maybe 3 teams. In the West, it's, to me, Golden State and Phoenix. If they stay healthy on their path, that's kind of the showdown. But to the point about the Celtics, the worst place you can be in pro sports is the middle. And when you watch them, it's not that they can't get everybody healthy and make a move or two. You know it and you feel it on a daily basis out there. But it just, when you watch them, it just feels like it's more than a piece or two. They're just a ways away. And so to the point about the trade deadline and what you do in the future, I don't know what you do if you're Brad Stevens, because I don't think exactly what you said, that there is, all right, if we make this move or that move, it's going to take us to some different place. I think their roster kind of is what it is behind Tatum and Brown, and you hope they can stay healthy and get it together in the second half.
Well, you have an interesting perspective on this because you had to watch the Warriors go backward to go forward. Now, their decision was easy, right? Because there was injuries, and it's not like you're sitting here waiting for Jaylen Brown to come back from some catastrophic ACL or whatever. But how hard was it for that team to do that, to kind of go backwards, to accept that, but now reap the rewards of it? Do you think it was worthwhile for them to, I mean, I think I know the answer, but like, how was it, if you talked to Steph Curry and said, you had to sacrifice a little bit of this to get where you are now, was that all worthwhile?
It was incredibly difficult for them, but it's all around the framing of, yeah, it was tough. They've got all these guys who have won and they took a step back. And frankly, Chris, nobody really cared about the Warriors from a national standpoint these last couple of years. Steph got hurt. The season got shut down with the pandemic. The Warriors disappeared. And last year, Steph was awesome, could have won the MVP. Yeah. And not many people cared because they were so up and down. And Draymond wasn't very good. And they just didn't have the right pieces. It sounds like what we're talking about with the Celtics. They did not have the right pieces around Steph and Draymond to bring the best out of them. And then Clay got hurt again. Wiseman, he had some good moments, but he wasn't as great early on as they thought. So in the end, of course it was worth it because now they have, it appears, a legit title contender again. But the key with them is I think they were mentally and physically exhausted over those 5 years of going to the finals. So while they hated kind of disappearing off the big radar of the league, they almost needed the break. And then now if you get Clay back and you get Steph and Draymond continuing to play at this level, then they have a legit chance at winning a title this season, which I don't think even all of those guys, as positive as they've been about what this could be, I don't think anybody expected it this year.
It's fascinating because I'm left, hearing you talk about it. So Tatum and Brown have all that success early and you just sort of get used to it, right? And I wonder if having to take a step back, even if it's just a minor step back this year and kind of, all right, we just got to deal with the fact that you trade away Schroeder, you trade away Josh Richardson, you make some moves on the fringes, but you're not really a contender and you're maybe playing for a draft pick. And, maybe that will make them want it a little bit more. Like, I don't think the Warriors ever didn't want it, but man, I think they're going through this now and they're like, oh yeah, this is what it felt like. And you wanted to be back there. You don't know what you got till it's gone. I hope, as much as everyone sits here and wonders at what makes Jason Tatum tick and how he feels about winning and all that. You talk about Timmy B, his anonymous sources up here, put him in the crosshairs as well. So, I am fascinated by that. I got one other Nick Friedell connection that I need to ask you about. How do you think Tom Thibodeau is feeling trying to get defense out of Kemba Walker and Evan Fournier?
Oof. I saw him when the Knicks played the Warriors, and Tibbs was just looking like.
But he always looks like that.
I was going to say, that look even better than I do, having been with him in Boston all those years ago. But everybody had high expectations. I did too for the Knicks this year, given what they did last season. And to see them really take that step back on the defensive end, and then offensively, you see Randall, he's taking a step back. He's not the same player. Kemba he's unplayable right now. They're not getting much from him. And Fournier, he's a solid player, but he isn't giving them what they thought he could.
Right.
We're talking about the flawed roster of the Celtics. I just watched the Knicks. That is a very flawed roster. And that is a team that is a long ways away from the title contention that we're discussing with the Warriors. When you watch the Warriors, Chris, and you see the Suns, and I go with the Bucks and the Nets again. When you see those teams, they are a cut above everybody else. And whether or not that maintains over the course of the next 3 or 4 months going in the playoffs, we'll see. But there is a lack of real high-level greatness in the NBA this year. There are just not a lot of great teams. There's a lot of mediocre teams. There's a lot of teams that you're not sure what to expect on a nightly basis. I think the Celtics and Knicks, to this point in the conversation, they fit that in that group really well. But when you talk to league executives and people who are watching every night, they're just going, man, it's kind of a down year for the talent base of a lot of these teams on the whole.
Yeah, that's why it's always weird to me. I mean, I know people say like the East is better, but then you look at the East teams' records versus above 500 teams. It's not great. And we just saw the Celtics went west and got stomped. Atlanta got stomped out west. As much as people want to talk up the East, I think it's clear that the West is still pretty talented, and it's not an easy place to go play. It's certainly not based on what the Celtics had happen. It was NBA Jersey Day yesterday, and I actually I was thinking about you because we were trying to think of the best uniforms on our Celtics PostUp show through history, and there was one that made me think of you. Do you know which uniform I'm going to suggest for?
I'm hoping it's the black Orlando pinstripe from the Magic in the good old days.
So your Orlando roots came racing back. I have a Penny Hardaway jersey with the pinstripe somewhere in here that I got to go dig out. But I was trying to think, because they were asking what jerseys do I have and I was like, man, when I was a kid, I had 45 Jordan because I was just obsessed with the Bulls and Jordan at that point. I have a KG Minnesota jersey because that just like changed the league. But yeah, that Penny Hardaway jersey is probably my favorite one. And I should have worn it for the podcast today. But how you feeling about your Magic? Are they ever going to come back?
I mean, are you trying to make me cry on this podcast?
I'm sorry.
They are. You think the Celtics have problems? You think the Knicks have problems? The Magic are. They are 2 years away from being 2 years away. I mean, they are a long ways off, and they'll get Fultz back, and they'll get Isaac back, and that should help. Wagner's had some nice moments. Franz and Cole Anthony's had a nice year, but Jalen Suggs is hurt. They are at the bottom of everything, and it is sad. And sadly, Chris, nobody wants to hear about the Magic. The Magic jerseys are more interesting than the Magic right now themselves. But as a proud Orlando native, this is not a good time.
Yeah, I'm always rooting for you guys selfishly, just for nostalgia's sake. It's been great to see the Charlotte Hornets come back. I can bring up my Hornets starter jacket from 1992 or whatever. But I didn't mean to go down a depressing path for you there. I want to close with this. I told you I wasn't going to bring up my Spirit Airlines story, but so back in another lifetime, me and Nick, they really gave us a podcast. They let us, and I decided it would be great to rant about how much I love Spirit Airlines for 30 minutes. And that's when I stopped hearing from people from ESPN. Like, they're
like, who is this guy?
Yeah. Did you,
what?
You'll never fly Spirit with me?
Never. I flew it. I told you once. One time we got delayed in Fort Lauderdale for 3 hours. Nobody gave us a reason why. And then we just got on the plane. I mean, we made it back. So, hey, I'm still here talking to you. That part's cool, but no thanks on Spirit.
I just went and visited my mom last week, $54 round trip. I know, and then maybe I'm just in love with the savings, but I know how to play the system now. If anyone needs this Spirit Airlines scouting report, you can either go find that episode of what were we calling it back then? Basketball Friends? Was it the Basketball Collective at that point? I don't even remember. But you can search the ESPN archives for whatever we were called back then, and you can listen to me and Nick. And I think a horrified Bobby Marks was mostly the who had lived the life of luxury on Brooklyn Next charter planes and hears me talking about Spirit and was probably mortified. But you guys both being from Florida, you should know. Like, you got to sometimes, the low fare carriers are.
Yeah, we know not to do it. That's what we know. We know not to trust Spirit with anything.
All right. Well, I don't bring luggage on board. There are a few steps that you have to follow. But all right. Well, before I go on a whole nother rant, let's wrap it up there. Nick, I will see you. We'll see you up here on Friday night and see what we got from the Warriors and the Celtics. Thanks for jumping on.
Can't wait, buddy. It's going to be great to see you.
All right, my buddy Nick. I love him to death. He's always got good takes. The whole Eastern Conference. He really knows his stuff. But as we were recording, some breaking news out there. Woj over at ESPN reporting, the Utah Jazz are hiring Danny Ainge as alternate governor and CEO. Sources tell ESPN Ainge will oversee basketball and Justin Zanuck will remain the GM. And kind of told you this was coming when we talked to Danny last week. He definitely wanted to get back into basketball. He's been living in Utah. I know a lot of people are trying to connect dots and say maybe he'd be interested in the Portland situation, but with his family there and his connections to the region, this makes all the sense in the world. Selfishly, it's great to see Danny back in because I know it's something he wanted to do, and just he missed being around the players and missed just the daily interactions. And this sounds like the perfect sort of balance between making sure this team is headed in the right direction and using his knowledge. And I think it's an outstanding hire for the Utah Jazz. Of course, Celtics fans will immediately think, okay, who can GM Brad call and can he get Donovan Mitchell out of Utah? But the Jazz are right there. I know when me and Nick were talking that we said that Golden State Warriors, Phoenix Suns, that's sort of the top of the West. But I'd throw Utah in there. They got to get over a hump and learn to win on that big stage. But there's no lack of talent, as Celtics saw when they were raining down 27 3-pointers out west. I'll be fascinated to see just how much hands-on Danny is and what his role is there as sort of overseeing basketball. But it seems like the perfect balance on paper for Danny to leave a mark and still have that home life, still probably get on the golf course on occasion, and back in the front office for the Utah Jazz. On Celtics PostUp this week, we got a chance to sit down with Grant Williams. Before we get into the interview, I do think it's important to note, we've talked a lot about player development, and, it's December 15th. A lot of players around the league are now eligible to be traded. I wrote on NBC Sports Boston today about what the potential paths are for the Celtics. I think there's a world where even if they're signaling that they're maybe going to be sellers or maybe not being a top line contender, that they will look to move on from Dennis Schroeder and potentially Josh Richardson if there's interest in them. There's other moves that could bubble up, but like me and Nick were talking about, it's hard to see the superstars that might be available. I do think Jeremy Grant, a name we tossed around a lot last year, is worth keeping an eye on and what happens with Detroit. He doesn't fit their timeline really well right now based on what they paid him and like when that contract will be up. But they would also probably need to command a heavy ransom for getting him out of there because of what they paid to get him there. But I think Brad Stevens has got some tough choices ahead about where this thing goes. And one of the things is if you do move Schroeder and Richardson, you open a pathway for younger players like Aaron Nesmith and Peyton Pritchard to play more. And I think that's important because young guys, they just need to be able to learn from mistakes and being able to come back the next night and bounce back. And so I think it's tough when you're playing 5-7 minutes a night, when you're only seeing the floor in trash time. And I get it because the Celtics are trying to figure out what they are right now. But Grant Williams is sort of the poster child for what player development can do. So Grant had a great rookie year. I mean, the bubble was phenomenal. And then he comes back and he doesn't really have a place last year and trying to play the 5, but was always more suited to play the 4, but stuck with it, made that 3-point shot a consistent weapon. And now you fast forward to this year and, as I think you'd say Schroeder is their 6th man, but Grant is probably their most valuable bench piece based on the amount of games that Schroeder has had to start. And it's refreshing to see development pay off. And you can even look at it with Romeo Langford, who has been starting stops with all the injuries, but year 3 here, we're really starting to see what he can do. And so development isn't linear, and sometimes it takes guys different paths. And I think we see a lot more instances where there's steps back in year 2 and steps forward in year 3. So I guess about that, my point here is don't give up on the Neesmiths and Pritchards of the world quite yet. I think there's even maybe more opportunity coming further down the road, depending on where the Celtics team goes. But let's get into our interview with Grant from Celtics PostUp.
Let's welcome in Grant Williams, or 3G, as I like to call him, even though Chris Forsberg absolutely hates that nickname. Thank you so much, Grant Williams, for joining us today. And Grant, just such a huge improvement on the court. I want to start there, shooting 45% from 3. What do you credit your huge leap this season to?
Just most of the work that I put in the offseason. Credit to the guys that helped me, Evan Bradds, Chris Matthews, Brandon Bailey, throughout my years. Jay Larranaga, even back to my rookie year. So I'm just thankful to have a lot of great people that have pushed me to this point, but a lot of that comes from the hard work and the opportunity that now the team makes for me with the open looks and then just the time that I've spent this past summer.
Was there a point, though, that you sort of felt you were turning a corner? Like, coming out of the bubble and working with Kemba at his house, was there a point where you just said, like, I am just much more confident right now shooting this shot?
Yeah, I feel like the confidence started with the bubble. Last season, I still shot it pretty well. I think it was around 37% most of the year, 40% beginning, then kind of floated down, ended with 37. So confidence just came from there, and then it was just about taking more of them. So this coming year, guys just said, we're confident in you as a shooter, so don't hesitate when you're out there. And I feel like I still turn up some looks every now and again, and they get mad at me for it, but just happy that that's the progression that I've made. After those first 25, I shot it pretty well, but it wasn't like it was that confidence yet. So I feel like after the bubble, having that opportunity in the playoffs and then going to the next 2 years, I've kind of taken that step.
And you had a big night last night against the Bucks, but I have to ask you about you and Bobby Portis Jr. You wanted all the smoke with Bobby Portis out there on the court. Take us inside of that moment. We know it gets heated on the court, but how did that kind of unfold in real time?
Yeah, it's a quick moment thing. It's one of those things where you don't want to ever get like thrown down or be that guy that lets someone push you around. So just letting him know that wasn't going forward. And Bobby's the type of guy where he's going to compete no matter who it is. He doesn't care if it's me, LeBron, whoever down the line. He's going to play with that intensity. So just letting him know I'm matching it. And we know we're not trying to get suspended out there, so if we really had an issue, we'd take it somewhere else. But at the end of the day, we're just competing at the highest level and playing basketball.
All right, well, two things. One, when was the last time Grant Williams was in a fight? And two, you said something to LeBron, too, and he had the whole bench cracking up after that. What were you wisecracking there with LeBron last week?
Oh, yeah. The first last time I was in a fight was probably in college. That wasn't that far ago. So
Did you win?
You don't really get that much anymore. You start taking money away, so you see less fights. And then when it comes to the LeBron thing, I feel like it was one of those things where he chased down Dennis for the block, got a foul call. So I said, that's the same call I got at you in our first game. And then he was like, you're comparing my chase down block to your chase down block. I said, yes, I am. He said, no, you're not. Yes, I am. No, you're not. It was just a back and forth, like jokeful banter while we were getting our butts kicked in LA.
I love that you go back and forth with LeBron right there. But every time I hear about you in interviews, everybody's talking about how much Grant Williams loves to talk. Your teammates talk about it as well. If you could filibuster on one topic, what would Grant Williams talk about for hours on end?
Like we said about when we discussed earlier, games probably. I'm a big-time game guy, whether it's board, card, video. I feel like I love to learn any type of game there is just because I'm a competitor. So both athletically and outside, inside, or just sitting at the table playing card games, board games, video games, I feel like I can talk about those for hours.
Okay, but I have to know, are you a good spades partner? That's really all that matters.
I'm the best spades partner. Let's just say me and my brother probably get with a lot because of it, because we are very competitive. So if one of us makes a wrong move, let's just say it's an upset night.
Wow, that's a very confident answer, Grant, right there. I'm not as confident as you when it comes to spades. I'm not going to lie.
I feel like we need to get a game going right now because I feel like I'll put my spades intensity up against anybody. But I do want to talk about things. One thing that I love about you is not only your competitiveness, but the way you try to get into people's heads. So last night you were walking past the free throw line. Connaughton was there, and then Drew Holiday. You were like rubbing their hands or something like that. What was going on there? Were you surprised you got attacked? And what were you trying to accomplish?
I was about to say they never really give out delayed games or text for that. So like when you see like even our Phoenix game when Jay kind of jumped on the free throw line while I was mid free throw, like they didn't call anything. So like I was like, oh, they're not gonna give me nothing for this. So I was just messing with them, like trying to get in their head. Some people walk by, say something. I was like, if I touch the right hand they're about to shoot with, it might be like, hey yo, what's going on? And then miss the free throw. So normally on the bench I'm saying something, but you can't say anything on the court. So those are the mix of things that you do. Kind of upset that it was a delayed game, but at the same time, it wasn't a technical, so I didn't get fined for it. So I'm happy about it.
No fine, so Grant Williams is happy. Well, Jason Tatum had some very high praise for you after last night's game. Let's take a listen real quick.
Grant shooting the lights out. Don't let him let you hear that, or let him hear that. But no, he's put in so much work and to develop, to be able to be a guy that can guard and space the floor. And, you know, it's night and day from when he first came into the league and somebody that we can really depend and rely on to knock down open shots and just space the floor.
Grant seems to like to talk. Is he talking a lot about how his shooting is coming along in the locker room?
Every day.
See, Grant, I didn't even listen to that soundbite before, but even the question before I asked you, when I talked about the fact that everyone brings up just how much you talk inside the locker room, it just never fails anytime we hear an interview. But when you hear JT talk about you like that, what's your reaction?
My guy, appreciate it. As much as we talk about my shooting, we talk about his too. So don't let him make it seem like I'm the one talking just about how I'm shooting the ball, Mr. 42. But we had a great time in that locker room. Just we have great chemistry, and then the communication side of things is what we're growing with. I've talked a lot, but now we're starting to see everybody's personalities come out. The team, even the animation that we had last night. That's what we really want to make this team take that next step. So that talking side of things is our next step as a team, and it makes us even closer. And let's just say I won't hesitate to be that guy.
Grant, I don't know if you can see the little banner in front of you right now, but producer Max wants to know, what's the hottest object in the solar system? Is it A, the sun, or B, Grant Williams' jumper?
I would go with the sun just because logically, but if I can say my jumper, hopefully that helps me get to the three-point contest.
All right. Well, look, I know Grant Williams is a phenomenal gift giver. I actually have this candle here that you're probably wondering how I got this. Well, Enes Kanter once left it after a podcast and then just said I could take it. So you should know how much he respects your gifts. But I want to know, what is on Grant Williams' Christmas list this year? What's the number one thing you want from Santa?
Ooh, number one thing I want, honestly, I'm getting more into like professional clothing. So like ties and like nice dress shirts and stuff like that. I'm kind of getting into that next step. So I feel like that's probably number one Christmas. It's kind of cheesy because that's what you get your father and stuff like that for Christmas, but I'll be that guy.
I like it. The suit game for Christmas. I like it, just the stuff that you get your father. So you want all the grandpa stuff for Christmas. Got it. We'll put it down.
I'd try to give you advice, but I shop at like Target. So.
hey, Target's just as good, right? Macy's, Target, Kohl's, all
at Target. All right. Thanks so much, Grant, for spending time with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yelling at LeBron, fist fights with Bobby Portis, or well, near fist fights, trying to get inside the head of Milwaukee Bucks players by rubbing their hands. He's an interesting guy, and he likes to talk. That much is for sure. But every team needs a Grant Williams on there, not just because he's shooting some ridiculous 46% from three-point land, but his defense has been solid, and that energy, that sort of desire to compete and to mess with the opposing players. It's neat to see. It's not quite on that Marcus Smart, ruthless aggression type level, but Grant's right there. Grant wants to win. I can say that much based on the way he acts and the way he wants the ways he tries to find to will this team to victory. All right. I need everybody to go like, subscribe, go check us out on the YouTube page, leave comments wherever you can find them. We'll catch you next time on the Celtics Talk podcast.